Going once, going twice, sold! You're listening to The Property Pod.
All right, guys, welcome back to The Property Pod, your accessible and easy to listen to podcast about the real estate game here in Hobart, Tasmania. I'm your host, Aaron Horn, and joined, as always, Patrick Berry and John McGregor, 414 Property Co. Real Estate Agents.
Forever and ever.
What was that?
I don't know. Before I was walking past, just poking a face at Amelia, just make her laugh, and then she did the same to me walking past. Then I had this image of I'm going to be 75 and still find that stuff hilarious. And I'm just worried that once you get too old, when is it that you stop? You're not allowed to poke fun at faces and do with silly walks up and down the hallway before it gets too weird. I'm just going to roll and hope that, it's thought like a Monty Python skit and,
I was going to say, you imagine John Cleese would still be pulling funny faces out there in the world. So, I think you're all right, mate. All right. I think you can, keep pulling funny
You're
faces.
You're in the clear, apparently.
Yeah, either I'll just ride this train while I still can.
Well, you probably get to that point where they're just like, he's lost it. So there is probably a sweet spot in the middle where they're like, he's a kid.
Yeah.
Oh, no, he's not a kid.
It's like,
old man funny versus nursing home required.
So it's a fine line, my friend.
Yeah,
I think you're right on it.
Yeah. The
good news is we've got a full camera setup going now. This is crazy. Yeah. So if you feel like you're in the Big Brother house, so
it does feel like that with the cameras now coming down from the roof and
it's definitely the crazy setup. So we've been working to get here for a little while now for the Property Pod. It's always been a dream. We've finally achieved a camera on all of us. So now you don't have to share the frame with anyone else.
Yeah. And it's all working.
Yeah.
It's all working.
Yeah, this week.
Yeah. Very true.
Who knows where we'll end up next week?
Well, so the funny thing is, we've posted yesterday on our Facebook page, look at our studio setup, and then the plan is to go live.
That's the plan,
the
eventually.
dream. So
our problem is that we talk way too much rubbish that I don't know if live will ever happen, but hey, we've got the setup now, so we'll try to make it happen.
But we were talking about this because the last episode we just ran with our talking about the colouring in competition before it's all officially started. And it was quite fun. But
I don't know if there's probably about 15 to 20 people out there that would have heard the raw and unedited version that actually went live straight away. So if you're one of the subscribers, you would have heard straight out of the gate. So I think actually Nan heard us talking. So the unedited version of the audio was us talking about Aaron Murray's colouring in competition. It was Parker explaining
why he's going to win.
Yeah. And it was really interesting. So I'm driving along in the car and I've heard bing, and it was like, hold on a sec, this isn't meant to be in there. So we were live in a way because it was an unedited, just open casting call to anybody. This is what we talk about when we don't know we're being recorded.
Yeah. Well, but we noticed we didn't put our foot in it though. So I'm pretty confident that if we go live, we know what we can and cannot say these days. Yeah. So I think we're going to be fine.
I'm on board with that.
Yeah.
So yes, Nan heard the unedited version. Have you actually clocked in the 414 footy tipping? Her name in the thing is called Podcast Nan.
I saw one called Podcast.
That's amazing.
So when that came through, I was like, that's brilliant, Nan. So,
sorry, wait a minute. When I talk to you, Aaron, these days, I've got to sort of...
you got to move around.
Around to see now that we've got so much gear in here.
I know, it's kind of crazy. I think all eye lines are pretty good.
Anyway, we're under control.
We'll work it all out. So this week we thought we'd jump into, actually, we've got an article from Simon Presley from Propertyology, our boy. We love him. We probably should call him up and see if he wants to join us because he loves.
Well, he's got plenty of time now. He's in lockdown.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Of course.
Oh, yeah. Queensland's back on under, isn't it?
Yeah. So Simon will be sitting at home, probably listening to the episode tomorrow, I reckon.
Yeah. Well, maybe we should reach out and just see if he wants to have a yarn. It might keep him busy and.
Well, I've done no luck getting a building inspector for us, so let's try Simon again.
Yeah. Back.
Stick with what we know. So we wanted to talk to Simon or talk about Simon's article there, but the other one I just wanted to cover on is this another Jared Bevan article. We love Jared Bevan.
Oh, there's a couple here that we've got. So one of them was focused on what are the fastest moving suburbs.
That's it.
And then another one they're referring to, which is the REIA Housing Affordability Report. That
I think we should start off with something fun. Let's go Bevan and fastest moving suburb.
Yeah, so this is nuts. This is in the
entire country,
the entire nation across all Australia. 9 of the top 13 fastest markets are in the Greater Hobart region.
Unbelievable, isn't it?
Isn't that nuts? So you guys,
there are also suburbs that you wouldn't really think of either.
No, so yeah, I've got this down here. So in the housing category, it includes Herdsman's Cove, West Hobart and Dodgers Ferry. They have a median days on market 11 days. And then Midway Point, which we're going to shoot a property at the Savo, has a median of 12 days.
Yeah, and what's important to note with that too is that means it's on the market and it's confirmed sold. You know, so because you could be under contract and then might take 30, 40 days, but no, it's just on the market and confirmed.
So the top one in the actual country is 7 Mile Beach, and that has a median of 7 days.
Yeah. Awesome.
Which is just nuts. Like that's the median. It's not even like there's got to be ones that are.
They're just, for me, like as far as Tasmanian suburbs go, such a weird group of suburbs that you think would be the most performing ones when you look at it across, not just Australia, but just Tasmania as a whole. Like you look at all of what a Tassie has to offer, and like Herdsman's Cove and Midway Point, Dodgers Ferry, these are suburbs that you don't normally associate with being like ones that people would rush to buy in.
So
it's because they're not close to town. They're a little bit further out, but that's maybe why they sell quick, because they are a little bit more affordable. Like, I'm not sure. It's crazy.
Well, it's just that change. Wouldn't have had those couple down at Dodgers Ferry in our business. I mean, they went off the charts. And that's where you've just got so many young buyers even moving into those suburbs as well, where they've had that experience with growing up there, or their families have had shacks down there, or they've had a lot of their friends move down that area.
So you would have had a few conversations with buyers down there and people that are missing out on the properties, or, you know, trying to get in. And often I'll hear you'll be calling them back up and saying, like, I've got another one. Like, is it because it's a rare for, like, I read that 7 Mile Beach is often kind of one of those suburbs that things don't often come up for sale in. So when they do, people jump on them. Is that what you're finding in your midways and your
I know why I liked 7 Mile Beach was A, it's flat, B, it's still relatively close to Hobart, and C, you've got a weekend lifestyle. So for a family, you know, ride the bikes, go to the beach, all of that's right there where you live. So
well, there was that land release recently as well.
That just went
crazy.
Yeah. And I think Dodgers Ferry is similar. Like 7 Mile Beach, obviously more expensive. Dodgers Ferry still offers the same lifestyle as 7 Mile, but because it's a little bit further out, I think maybe it's a little bit more affordable for a lot of people.
Absolutely.
And then you've got Carlton Beach, which has got a really good surf break, which obviously a lot of people like to go down and use. So I don't know, maybe people like the surfing lifestyle and the beach lifestyle in Tassie these days.
Well,
or we've got a lot of New South Wales people and Queensland people moving to the state that are used to that lifestyle. And so that's why they want to be in those areas.
I guess it's interesting, like you were saying about people that had holiday down there in the past. Like, is that what you were finding across the board with many of the inquiries?
It had been. We had the one we sold in Nicholas Avenue specifically. That couple was living on the Eastern Shore, and it seems to be that they're a lot of 80% of their life is orientated towards in that area, and they're not too worried about the little bit of extra travel time, because the lifestyle they get in the property once they get home is worth it. And now it seems like, as we can all appreciate as Tasmanians, we're pretty precious when it comes to our time in the car. So anyone that has moved into state, we're going, what are you idiots on about?
I'd never move as far as Dodgers Ferry. That's where my father-in-law and mother-in-law lives. And
there you go.
God, it's a pain to drive back from there. So as a local, I'd never go that far, but I can understand why a lot of people from the mainland would happily relocate to a location like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And not feel like they're missing out on any of their personal time in the car.
Because I think the difference as well is like a half an hour or an hour commute for a mainlander, as long as the car is moving, they're happy. Like, I think they get frustrated when the car's just stuck. And so even though the cars might be moving slowly for what we as a local would see as a traffic jam and get frustrated with, that's fantastic still for the average person that's used to such gridlock.
Yeah, no, we definitely live in a world where we are, pretty much COVID-free and pretty much traffic jam free.
Yeah.
It's paradise down here.
Well, the last thing I could think of is any peripheral suburb now that is maybe 30 minutes drive, 20 minutes drive from Hobart, all of them have become popular because the old perceptions that if you've been born and raised here, and I suppose, even a couple of generations before, there will sometimes parent will say, oh, you'd never want to buy in that suburb. But the reality is that they have actually no idea what they're talking about anymore. Blackman's Bay back in the 50s and 60s apparently was one of the roughest suburbs in Tasmania for a time.
Oh, really?
But of course you wouldn't have that association with Blackman's Bay at all. And then it's the same where as that classic word gentrification comes into it. I mean, even Lutana, like we've talked before, the last 3 properties have all gone to young women, interestingly enough. And a couple of the comments and feedback that they had was that we feel really safe in this suburb. It's really convenient, but you certainly wouldn't have had that same demographic saying those same things even 10, 15, 20 years ago.
I think all suburbs change over time, and it just depends who's moving into them and how they're sort of be developed over time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, another one here on this list with the fastest markets in all of Australia is Herdsman's Cove, which you do a lot of work in, Pat. Like I never would have guessed that. Like yes, lots of properties come through, they sell relatively quickly, but to be that high across the whole nation, it's just
I wouldn't have picked it.
Yeah.
No. But I was at a rental yesterday. We were photographing it with Bassie from our team, and I was out the front talking to the tenants, and same thing though. The tenants were saying, 5-10 years ago, you'd ring up somewhere and tell them that you were from Bridgewater, and you'd get sort of shunned on.
Yeah.
And she's like, now it's just a suburb. Yeah. And she's like, and it's an awesome suburb. Like, you should see this playground they're building out there, for an example.
Is that the one behind the community centre, behind the Centrelink?
No, that one's already done. There's a new one they're building down on the waterfront along Eddington Street, on the waterfront. Yeah. It's freaking amazing. It's like the Kingston one that just opened up.
Yes.
It's got this big hamster wheel, and I'm like, I just want to put Parker in that and go, Parker, go. It's got this
wear yourself out.
Human-sized hamster wheel in there.
Joking.
It looks so good.
Oh,
that's awesome. That's so good.
Yeah, so I'm keen to, once that opens up, and it's right on the waterfront, so it's got like this pristine sort of outlook to it and this bush feel, and it looks really cool.
I'll have to have a look next time I'm driving out that way.
Yeah, so look, all different suburbs are always improving. I think councils have identified that they need to put back into the suburb to get them to be appealing for people to want to live in them.
So true, man. So true.
It's good to see this stuff happening. It's exciting.
Well, it's interesting where you've got this, exceptionally short days on market, because leading into that article that Simon was talking about, that he's put together about, was it 11 facts on
investing right now?
So the number one that he said, Australia's total supply of properties listed for sale at the end of January 2021 is an all-time record low and a whopping 23% lower than 4 years earlier.
So a quarter less houses across the entire country for sale.
For people who have been able to buy. And when we look at what was happened in Tassie, is that I think that was the same thing when we had the guy from Domain, their numbers stacked up to say that there's been like a 50% increase in the level of interest.
Yeah.
So it's just that element that when you've just got a higher surge of demand of purchases with 25% historical properties available, it's sort of hand in hand going, okay, yep, that makes perfect sense. But for that to spread Australia wide is, phenomenal. Crazy. Yeah. And it's interesting when we're having a lot of that. We've had quite a few properties being subject to sales at the moment. And, we've had to be trying to come up with some additional clauses that's helped people have the confidence to put their house on the market, because they've got, the biggest fear at the moment is not being able to find something.
Yeah, exactly.
So then it's at the moment you've sort of got, I think, it seems a lot of people still want to move, but everyone's waiting for the other person to make the move first.
Yeah.
So you just got this bit of a challenge at the moment for, all right, we really want to go, but we can't. And I find it really interesting in our job at the moment, where I think that's where real estate agents right now are exceptionally useful, by being able to identify everyone and be able to put all these all these pieces in place.
Yeah, you're almost like a grandmaster chess player.
Yeah.
Kind of I've got to move my rook to get my castle out.
Yeah. Lovely.
So much. I was like, after rook, I'm like, oh, crap.
Bishop. Pawn. What are all those things?
This one can move diagonal.
Well, I think we'll definitely have to get Dad on, because he had this story, I think, in his office once. They had about 9 or 10 properties, all in a row going subject to sale, subject to sale, subject to sale. And it all depended on this tiny little house at the end, which I think the business ended up buying because there was so many, because it was just this obscure one that wasn't very expensive, but just in order for all these properties to, go like dominoes.
Oh, like a domino effect of kind of pushing it all along the line.
Yeah, exactly. So in these hard markets where, the property's moving fast, but of course there's nothing to buy. Obviously it's really exciting to be the agent in that sense, because, our job dynamically can change a lot, which is ensuring that, you really need to know everyone's situation, because we're trying to map those little positions together so everyone's looked after. Because, I hate it when it's when someone comes in and says, oh, look, well, I've sold my house. And it's like, well, great. Have you lined up something else? No. It was like, well, what was your other agent doing? I don't know. You know, it's like, well, maybe if we just had a better conversation, a little bit better plan, they wouldn't be stuck going, oh, I'm desperate to find a place.
Yeah. So rather than kind of being forced into making a rash decision and perhaps not buying your dream home, you're forced to buy something else.
Yeah, absolutely.
What else have we got on the propertyology front? What's Simon telling us?
So number 2, property investors are creatures of habit and therefore almost completely overlook the best performed property markets of the future. Cast your mind back 5 years ago and ponder where the majority of people would have invested. For the record, Hobart 55% capital growth, Canberra 29% were the best capital cities, while Sydney 13% and Brisbane 14% were underwhelming. A long list of regional standouts that perform better than the 7 out of 8 capital cities include, but not limited to, Ballarat, Bega, Berry, Burnie, Byron, Coffs Harbour, Geelong, Kempsey, Kiama, Launceston, Mildura, Newcastle, Noosa, Orange, Seymour, Shoalhaven.
We didn't have to read them all, John. It's okay, mate.
Sound like that. Who's
that song?
Yeah. Never.
Here we go. And I've been to Ballarat, Bega, Berry, Burnie,
Why don't you do it like
that? Kiama, Launceston, Mildura, Newcastle, Noosa, Orange. We'll stop.
So I guess what he's basically saying is that don't always buy what you have in the past.
Yeah,
look at additional options.
Yeah.
In a nutshell is what he's saying, correct?
Well, that was a conversation he had with us. Remember that he tries to encourage
day
you.
one. That
Hey,
was what he said.
don't think you have to invest in your backyard.
Yeah.
The only downfall back then he was suggesting Hobart. Now he's suggesting all these other places.
Yeah. He's came and went.
You missed your window.
Missed your window. What do we got? So over the 12 months ending February 21, the 8 times combined capital cities had an increase in job vacancies of just 2%, whereas the combined regional location had an increase of 65%. So what are we looking at there? Is it where, was it vacancies of just 2%, where combined regional locations had an increase of 65% of job vacancies? So is that effectively everyone's, moving away from their normal spots in some respects? I know.
I don't get that one.
Yeah, that's it. This is all right. For the record, for those listening, it's we're reading these and then thought we'd make interpretations, not realising that we may not be able to interpret it.
Because we're a professional.
Yeah, we're a professional property fund. Yeah, exactly.
Plenty of research went into this show prior to going to live.
Well, this is cool though. Sydney's population from internal migration declined by 150,000 people over the 5 years ending December 2020. That's equivalent to an entire city the size of Cairns or Darwin.
Yeah,
so that's huge.
You can understand that though with how expensive Sydney is to live in. So,
yeah.
People have got to look at options outside where they've potentially grown up as a child because they can't afford to live there anymore.
Yeah. Well,
and Simon's always said that as a first home buyer, you can't. It's not that you can't afford to buy into the market. It's potentially you can't afford to buy into the market where you want to live.
Yeah, that's so true.
You can always buy into the market. It's just whether or not you're prepared to buy somewhere else.
Yeah,
and this is where different people that we've had over the past on the show do rent vesting, where they buy where they can afford but rent where they want to live. And so there are options out there for young people, but I think they get caught up in that sort of idea of I want to live in Sandy Bay. That's where I grew up.
Yeah,
but I can't afford to live in Sandy Bay. I really can only afford to live in Bridgewater.
Yep.
So you have to make that decision. What's more important, the location where you live or the idea of owning your own property?
Yeah, and that long-term vision. Because who was the young guy that we who's one of
Blake
Schmedley. Yeah, very early on the piece. That is exactly what he was doing. So
I'd love to get Blake back on and find out how he's going, if his portfolio has grown or if he's. I often drive past the property he purchased and just think, I wonder how our boy Blake's going.
Well, but he said it too. Like he wasn't sacrificing any lifestyle at all, because to rent in North Hobart, I think where he was living at the time, was cheap, certainly cheaper than buying. And he managed to grab a couple of investment portfolios that were positively geared because the rental yield at Bridgewater and Herdsman's Cove were so strong. So he wasn't actually sacrificing his lifestyle at all. He was just quietly putting away for his future.
Yeah, just leveling up, just gaining that XP.
Yeah, exactly. So that's so it's a really encouraging story. I mean, obviously, and where like the one we covered before is that Hobart's not exempt from housing affordability anymore, because it showed that we've got the least rental affordability in the country. And where that was on from the REIA's report, where it's relative to our median income, because I think Tassie shows we're the least, I think, with median income, aren't we?
I didn't read that article.
Yeah,
so
but just generally
with that one.
Yeah, so it just means that where you could make the argument to say, it's all well and good for you to be able to do that in Tasmania. Well, it's actually we're pretty much in par with the rest of the country these days. So there's certainly opportunities everywhere you look. So I think then it goes on.
All right, speed round through. through the next few. We got to
Wrap it up.
Wrap this up, boys.
Well, the thing is maybe, I mean, that was just a couple of interesting ones, but actually we'll reach out to Simon so he can explain this stuff in a much more succinct way, I would suggest.
That sounds like a very good idea.
Yeah, it's probably the best way to think.
We clearly don't understand what he's talking about. Is that what you're saying, John?
Pretty much. But there is the one here that's relevant for us. So we'll go with a population of 244,000 people. Australia's 11th largest city, Hobart, only had 175 dwellings advertised for rent at the start of 2021. So that goes right in hand what I was referring to there about availability. Is that, we've again, with this consistent pressure of population growth, our occupancy rates are just through the roof. So it's, there's virtually no properties available for rent. And I got a call from a friend of mine who's got a really good employee, a single fellow who's having a really hard time renting at the moment. And I said, well, look, come in, see what's going on. Luckily enough, we found out that he'd been said, I've applied for like 15 properties but haven't had a call back. And then we realised that he actually had submitted 15 applications incomplete. So he'd been doing it incorrectly. So that's a good little thing there, just to see if you make sure you get those details right. But again, it's we're still experiencing in our office that you get a dozen really good applications. So it's not like so it's sort of, oh damn it, we've got 12 really good people. Which way do we go? So that's a real challenge again. Again, it seems to be that's not going to be slowing anytime soon.
Yeah, crazy.
Excuse me.
No dramas. All right, boys. Well, what we might do is wrap up that there. We'll maybe reach out to Simon and try and get him to crunch some numbers for us and discuss this a little deeper. It's really good to be in the studio. Can I just remind you guys, I don't know if you guys are over this. This is episode 75.
75.
Really?
This is episode 75.
Damn, that's cool.
How did we find that much rubbish to talk about?
Yeah, tell me about it. So we were trying to get over the magic number 13. We've smoked that.
Yeah.
And actually, Aaron and I can also report that things are about to get even easier for us to produce content because we've brought on our own journalist to the team.
Yeah.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, so we've got Nino coming on to give me a hand in the marketing and the media side of life. So hopefully he can do some of the heavy lifting and find some really good stuff for us to talk about.
I think our main goal was to always try educate people as to how real estate works with this podcast and with our website. And Nino's going to come on board as a journalist to help produce content to be able to do that better.
Yeah.
So between helping us prepare for this podcast to writing blogs on our website, he's going to be able to value add a lot of extra info to the site.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
hopefully we can start to become sort of a one-stop shop if you need to know anything real estate in the coming years.
And I think part of that too was he was just going to ask us questions to just get the knowledge out of our heads onto paper, basically, wasn't it?
Yeah, a lot of that will come into play too. So we'll try to get him on the show
That would be
next
awesome.
month or two as well, just to
that'd be really
introduce
cool.
himself. So it should be fun.
Yeah, so what used to be a one-man crew is just growing.
It's
and
a
growing,
three-man crew now plus a pod team. So look out.
Yeah. No, I think it's so exciting. So exciting.
Thank you, everybody out there that still listens to the Property Pod. We will continue to endeavour. We're going to hit that 100 episode mark as the next check mark from here.
That's 2021 goal.
Well, I want to get live before
December.
100, the episode 100.
Oh, okay.
All right,
Got it.
So
That'll be a live episode. You thinking?
I want to
or
be
before.
I want to be before 100. I want to be live.
Right. Okay.
Is the
Deal.
plan.
Deal.
Done.
All right, guys.
Sounds good, guys.
Thanks for listening.
Take care.
See ya. You have been listening to the Property Pod, recorded and edited by 414 Media House in conjunction with 414 Property Code.
This podcast is general information only, and the thoughts and views expressed is the opinion of our panel, and listeners should always seek and use their own investigation into any topic we discuss to ensure they fully understand their own situation.
It does not constitute and should not be relied on as purchasing, selling, financial or investment advice or recommendations, express or implied, and it should not be used as an invitation to take up any agent or investment services. No investment decision or activity should be undertaken on the basis of this information without first seeking qualified and professional advice.